Hello and welcome to the PGRO Descriptive List launch for 2022. My name's Stephen Belcher and I'll be taking you through the presentation today. So I'll take you through the list for peas, spring beans and winter beans, and I'll review all the varieties within those crops. But firstly, I thought we'd take a bit of a look back at the changes that we've made from going from a recommended list to a descriptive list. Changes were made last year, but I just thought I'd give you a bit of an update as to where we are with these. And indeed, I still feel we're within a transitional period anyway in moving to a descriptive list. Firstly, the sites. Well, there are no changes to the sites. We retain the same numbers and roughly in the same locations. We found no changes to the data. We still use a 5-year data set, and no changes either to the rigour or the quality of the data that we produce. Tables, we continue now with producing both tables in PDF format and also an Excel download, which I'll come to later on in the talk. Of course, we changed the recommendation categories from what they used to be to simply now listing them by the number of years they've been in the descriptive list, and also alongside of that the year in which they enter the descriptive list. Yield control is one of the bigger changes, and what we use now is a large basket of varieties to give us a yield control, and that yield control consists of all varieties that have been in either 4 or 5 years within the data set. Straw length, we've gone from using a categorical rating on a 1 to 9 scale, more to now using a centimetre scale, which gives you a really good indication of how short or tall a particular variety is. We changed the pea types as well, of course, to reflect international recognition of the types. White peas are now yellows, and large blues are now green types. And of course, it's given us a lot more flexibility within the system that we use. So the sites we use, we have 6 winter bean sites, 10 spring bean sites, and 7 pea locations. And predominantly these are located down the eastern side of the country in the growing areas. Spring beans have the largest distribution of those from Northumberland down to Hampshire, into Kent and across into Herefordshire as well. As I mentioned, we now produce an Excel download of the descriptive list. And what this enables you to do is to sift and sort the data rather than looking at a big long list. So if you only want to look at low vicing, convising types, you're able to sort those out, and indeed within that sort them, for example, by yield or by disease rating. But alongside of that, we also now give you the yield over the 5-year period that we've used. So for the 2022 list, we use the yields from 2017 through to 2021. And we give those as a percentage yield. And that allows you to look at varieties in terms of consistency of performance. So are they consistent over years or not? And that maybe influence your variety choice. Moving to winter beans. Well, there aren't too many winter beans on the list to start with, but Vespa, Bumble, Tundra, Wizard, and honey all remain in the 5-year category. Vincent and Norton moved from year 3 to year 4. And if you remember back to a year ago, Vincent and Norton were due to be added to the descriptive list, but at that time they didn't have national list status, and subsequently they gained national list status and were able to add it to a later version of the list. New to the list for 2022 is a variety called Pantani from LS Plant Breeding. And Pantani, although it's lower yielding than most at 93%, it's an early maturing type. And I believe we should be comparing the yields therefore to honey at 95%. It's short, it's stiff-strawed, and it's perhaps more suited to the more fertile growing areas or wetter areas. In terms of maturity, honey and Pantani have a rating of 7. Well, the data is what it is, but in my view, having seen the trial, seen the varieties, and I think I said this last year as well, that I would rate perhaps Honey and Pantani with a rating of 8, Norton remain at 7, and then the other varieties following on behind from that. Otherwise, Vespa continues to perform well in trials, top yielding at 108%, closely followed by Vincent at 106%. Spring beans. Well, in the pale hilium types, we've still got a lot of varieties in the year 5 category: Lynx, Fanfare, Vertigo, LG Cartouche and Fuego. But joining those are now Victus, Tiffany, Macho, Ghengis, LG Raptor and Yukon. In the year 4 category, Stella, Capri and Daisy. But also we've got 4 varieties: LG Viper, LG Sphinx, Bolivia and Allison. And all 4 of those were in a similar position to Norton and Vincent. So they could have been added to the list. They didn't have national list status at the time. Subsequently they have, and now they appear on the descriptive list. There are no new varieties coming through into the bean descriptive list for 2022, and black hilium, Maris Bead remains on the descriptive list. So here's presented the yields for spring beans. In the blue bars and the black circles represent the downy mildew ratings. And the next slide highlights some of the differences between them. For 2022, there are no new varieties on the descriptive list, and all of the varieties on the descriptive list, with the exception of Maris Bead, are pale hilium, which is black. In addition, Victus, Tiffany, Allison and Bolivia are LVC types, so low vicine convicine types. Lynx, after being in second place on the 2021 descriptive list, jumps back to the top of list for 2022. It's had a particularly good year and tops the yield rankings at 106%. But this is closely followed by Ghengis and Stella at 105%, Daisy 104%, and Capri and Macho at 103%. Yukon and Maris Bead retain their very good rating for downy mildew at a rating of 8. Lynx drops 1 point to 7, but I think Lynx has perhaps been a little bit hard done by this because of rounding within the statistics. LG Viper rates a 6 for downy mildew and has the highest rating for rust resistance at a rating of 7. Macho has the highest 1,000 seed weight at 688 grams. LG Cartouche continues to give high levels of protein at 29.1% and consistently high levels. Yukon, whilst lower yielding, has early maturity. And I think some growers, particularly those growing in the north, into Scotland and the borders, I think the maturity advantage will be more so than having the highest yields. Moving to peas, in the yellow category, Karpate and Manager are now joined by Kameleon and Orchestra in year 5 category. And new to the list for 2022 is the variety Rivoli from Senova, and I'll pick up on Rivoli in a short while. In the green seeded category, it's a large category, lot of varieties in here, but this just reflects the market for green seeded peas, and currently in the UK, that's where the major market is. That's not to say it won't change, and whites may become more dominant in the future. But Blue Time, Carioca, Blue Man, Prophet, Daytona, LG Stallion, Kingfisher and Greenwood are now joined by Cactus and Greenwich. Mankato is a bit of an oddity in year 4 category. It's been on the list since 2016, but it did miss a year within the trialling system, hence it has the year 4 status, and similarly Kingfisher as well. But also in year 4 is Mika, Greenway, Stroma and LG Aviator. Joining the list for 2022 is the new variety Carrington from LS Plant Breeding. Not a lot of change within the maple pea category. We've still got Mantara and Rose, but they have had a good year in 2021 and have in fact up their yield ratings slightly for the 2022 list. In year 5, Marifat, Banshee and Octavia join Sakura, and Akuma moves from year 3 to year 4 status. The 2 new varieties are highlighted with the red arrows there. The first one is Carrington with a top yield of 117%. Second to that is white yellow seeded pea Kameleon at 115%, which was the top yielding variety in 2021. Also in the yellow seeded category, we've got a new variety called Rivoli. It's 103% yield. Bit on the low side, but it does have an 8 for downy mildew, which gives it the best downy mildew rating within the yellow group. It's nice to see an awful lot of 8s for downy mildew now within the descriptive list, but there is a word of caution within this, and indeed we've added a cautionary note to the bottom of the descriptive list for peas, in that with downy mildew there's lots of different races. Not all races appear in all soils, and so any one particular location, a variety, even though it has a high resistance rating to downy mildew, may get caught out by the disease. And bear in mind for 2022, it's highly likely we won't have any seed treatment for the control of downy mildew. The marrowfats have mostly dropped their ratings to downy mildew as well, so Octavia, Banshee and Sakura. Any part that's due to rounding and statistics, but Akuma does show a high rating of 4 within the marrowfat category. Just 1 or 2 other trends within the pea categories. So in terms of size, within the yellows, Orchestra is the largest seeded at 311 grams. In the green seeded type, Stroma at 309 grams. Greenwich largest still at 320 grams, and in the marrowfat, Akuma is even larger at 405 grams, and that's in comparison to the standard marrowfat Sakura at 377 grams. We've also got 3 varieties in there that have really good resistance to powdery mildew. We've got Blue Man and LG Aviator, which both show really good resistance to downy mildew as well. Greenwood is the other variety that has good resistance to powdery mildew. I wouldn't quite rate it as good as Blue Man and LG Aviator, but still better than most. So to finish up with, I would say we've got no new shortage of varieties coming through into descriptive list trials for 2022 trialling. And these are varieties that have completed 2 years of national list trials. So we have 5 new peas, 5 new spring beans, and 4 new winter beans. So with that, I'd like to finish and thank you for your attention, and no doubt I'll see you again in the near future.